The Catholic Archdiocese of Santa Fe, as you know, filed for bankruptcy back in 2018 after decades of payouts to survivors of clergy abuse. The church fell into financial ruins. Today, the church finds itself in a position having to atone for its sins of the past while still providing religious teachings and faith for its congregations all across New Mexico. Foreign investigator Chris Ramirez explains that balancing act is a tricky one.
When we talk about the Archdiocese bankruptcy proceedings, it's easy to get bogged down in the numbers and the figures, but at the center of the issue is accountability. It's what Isaac Casados wants.
For me personally, it was a challenge when you have a priest who you admire, a priest who you feel is that walking emblem of Jesus Christ on earth, take advantage of you.
Isaac and hundreds of others across New Mexico were sexually assaulted by Catholic priests when they were children. Isaac says his abuse happened here at Santa Cruz Church in Espanola.
I'm probably one of a very few that is still functioning, but there are other individuals who aren't today. And they're recluse and they're blaming themselves for something that they had nothing to do with.
Isaac is one of about 300 people who has a legal claim now tangled up in the Archdiocese bankruptcy proceedings. The Archdiocese of Santa Fe has an obligation to raise enough money to pay out those claims. Now, at this point, the public doesn't know how big of a pot that money has to be, but we know a few things have been going on. For one, we know that the Archdiocese, before it filed for bankruptcy, made some moves to protect its parishes.
But really the most surprising thing was that archdioceses and churches were using bankruptcy as a way to limit the amount of money that they paid out to victims. You know, they wanted it to be organized.
Reporter Josh Saul investigated the Archdiocese of Santa Fe's bankruptcy moves for Bloomberg News.
When the Archdiocese of Santa Fe filed for bankruptcy, it said that it had about $50 million in assets, which is a lot of money. But to arrive at that figure, they moved or reclassified about $178 million, $180 million off of their sheets, right, off of their balance sheets, saying either that money belonged to its parishes, or that money belonged to the Catholic Foundation, or that money was in a Wells Fargo account that the Archdiocese controls but doesn't own.
About a decade ago, the Archdiocese of Santa Fe began moving local parishes out of its immediate financial control. Christine Romero was the business manager at St. Anne's Parish in Santa Fe at that time.
In 2012, they did call us, the Archdiocese called us together and said that they wanted us to learn and to know how to incorporate each of our parishes, and then how to subsequently file the documents with Corporation Commission every year. And so we did.
Christine believes she and all local parish administrators were protecting the church from the wave of lawsuits that were coming in from survivors of clergy sexual abuse.
If a priest or a parishioner, anybody in our parish offended, then our parish then would be responsible for paying the victim, and the whole it wouldn't pull the whole archdiocese down, it would only pull that one parish down. So to me, from a business perspective, it made sense.
In bankruptcy paperwork, the Archdiocese listed $57.4 million worth of real property belonging to various parishes. They are held or controlled, but not owned by the Archdiocese. Public records also show the Catholic Foundation, a fundraising arm for the Archdiocese, holds about $30 million in assets. None of that money is available to survivors right now.
The language that the church uses is control but doesn't own. So they say that, even though we have oversight and really control our parishes, the parish's money, that's not ours. So what that does is it means that the Archdiocese has a much smaller pot of money.
The Archdiocese is caught in this intersection of trying to raise enough money to pay out all the survivors of clergy sex abuse, but at the same time, continue functioning for New Mexico's faithful. And we do see in the bankruptcy filings that the Archdiocese is making an effort to raise more money. For example, the Archdiocese sold this home that has historically been used as the private residence of the Archbishop. It also sold this home in northeast Albuquerque. It's unclear who lived there. The church recently asked the bankruptcy court for permission to auction off about 700 pieces of land across New Mexico that had either been donated to the church or had been held to build future parishes. And in a recent letter to St. Pius X high school parents, Archbishop John Wester warned the campus may be sold. However, Archbishop Wester wrote the Archdiocesan staff is investigating a number of possibilities to adequately monetize the campus so as to not have to list it on the open market. And in late 2020, the Archdiocese laid off 20 employees and stopped publishing a magazine for Catholic parishioners. But is all that enough?
When you work for the church, you see things that happen behind the scenes, and most Catholics only see from the pew what's happening at the pulpit.
It's about finding restitution, finding security and knowing that we didn't do anything wrong, to holding the Archdiocese and the Vatican or whomever it is responsible, and for helping to rebuild that foundation that we were never able to have as young kids. That's a hard thing.
The Archdiocese of Santa Fe declined to comment for this story. However, in the past, attorneys for the church have denied moving or shelling assets before it filed for bankruptcy. Now, as the church approaches its third year in bankruptcy proceedings, it remains unclear when any survivors of clergy sex abuse will receive any payouts or how much they will receive. I'm Chris Ramirez for Investigates.